Can you confess? I wanted to be straight up with one thing right there and now. Sure. The reason I'm confessing is there's not another girl. I do. There is no other girl.
Okay, so then what you're telling us is you're voluntarily coming forward to talk to us now.
Yeah, to let you know that I'm the one that did the killing.
This is Aileen Wuornos. In order to save her girlfriend from being prosecuted and tried for 7 homicides, she confesses and takes full responsibility for the crimes. Aileen Wuornos is born to a 16-year-old mother and is immediately adopted by her grandparents. She is regularly beaten. Accounts even say her grandfather would lock her in their sauna for hours. By the age of 11, Aileen learns to use her body for sexual favors for cigarettes. Soon this leads to Aileen becoming pregnant at just 14 years old, causing her to be thrown out of her house at 15. Her brother Keith is the only family member she remains in contact with. Their relationship is strange, as they regularly engage in incest. At 16, she escapes the frigid Michigan weather and hitchhikes to Colorado, where she is arrested for a DUI. 4 years later, in 1976, at 20 years old, she hitchhikes again to sunny Florida, where she marries 69-year-old Louis Gatzfeld. Gatzfeld is a wealthy businessman who is also president of the Daytona Beach Yacht Club. The marriage is annulled only 9 weeks later, as Aileen regularly beats him, sometimes even with his own cane. That same year, her brother dies of cancer, leaving her $10,000.
She spends it almost within weeks. Guns, cars, motel rooms. And then she decides she has to sustain this lifestyle and turns to armed robbery to do it.
Soon Aileen resorts to robbing and stealing to maintain her expensive lifestyle. A couple years later, in 1981, Aileen is arrested for stealing $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes from a convenience store. In 1986, she meets her dubbed soulmate, Tyra Moore. To make Tyra happy, Aileen starts robbing wealthy men looking for prostitutes so they can live lavishly. In Daytona Beach, Florida, Richard Charles Mallory, aged 51, is driving several miles north of Tampa on I-75. Several hundred yards down the highway, he sees a woman asking for a ride. Richard Mallory pulls over and picks her up. Unbeknownst to Richard, this is no ordinary woman. This is Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos is bested in greed, anger, and hatred, and this would soon be the final hours Richard Mallory would be seen alive.
He picked her up hitchhiking. They were drinking, they were hanging out, as it were, and one thing led to another, some type of violent encounter where she ended up killing him. She shot him 4 times with a 9-shot revolver. She took a couple of pieces of property that belonged to him, a camera and a radar detector, and she pawned them. She made some money off of the deal.
This was just the first of a year-long reign of killings conducted by Aileen Wuornos. Her victims are all similar, middle-aged men with money. Richard Mallory's body would be found 2 days later in his car 2 weeks after the murder. Six months later, Aileen is back to killing. This time, it's 43-year-old David Spears, a construction worker in Citrus County. He had been driving back from work on US 19 in Citrus County when he pulled over to let Aileen in. Again, she directed him to pull off the highway into a secluded forested area, started to take his clothes off, then received 6 gunshots to the head. His naked body was found weeks later. Just 12 days later, on May 31st, 1990, 40-year-old Charles Carskadon, a part-time rodeo worker, is driving in his Cadillac on Interstate 75 in Pasco County when he sees Aileen in the distance waving him down. He pulls over and Aileen gets in the car, directing him to drive to a hidden spot so they can have sex. Aileen gets out of the car, walks to the driver's side, and rings off 9 shots into Charles.
She didn't just kill, she shot Charles Carskadon 9 times.
Just days later, Peter Sims, a retired sailor, age 65, left his home in Jupiter, Florida to go on a road trip to Arkansas. Little did he know, this would be the last drive of his life. On his way to Arkansas, he sees Aileen and pulls over to let her in. He tells her he's a Christian minister, which immensely angers Aileen, as she sees him as a hypocrite because he is paying her for prostitution. Yet again, she directs him to drive to a secluded place, gets out of the car, walks to the driver's side, and shoots him. She changes the license plate of the car and drives away. His body is never found. In the span of 7 months, Aileen Wuornos has killed 4 men. She takes their money and steals anything of potential value. On July 4th, 1990, Aileen was driving with her girlfriend Tyria Moore, going to watch fireworks. On their drive, Tyria nearly misses a turn, causing her car to lose control, forcing the car to drive off into a ditch and lose engine power. A bystander calls 911 and alerts authorities.
We had received a telephone call through our 911 center that a vehicle had crashed in the community of Orange Springs, Florida. And walking away from that vehicle were 2 women.
When police get to the scene, Tyria and Aileen are nowhere to be seen. The officers check the car's VIN and it comes back to Peter Sims. The car is taken off to forensics, where because of her lengthy criminal history, fingerprints tracing back to Aileen are found.
Wuornos would pawn many of the items that she stole from her victims in order to get some fast money, and her fingerprints would still be on these items. Now, because Aileen had such a significant criminal record, her fingerprints were on file, and it was only going to be a matter of time before they were matched up and she was connected to these murders.
3 weeks later, on July 31st, 1990, Troy Burress, age 50, a sausage salesman, is driving back to the plant along State Road 19 when he sees Aileen in the distance. He pulls over and she directs him to yet another secluded spot. She walks around the car and shoots him twice. She takes his money and belongings. His body was found 5 days later. Retired police chief Charles Humphrey is driving in Myron County on September 11th, 1990, when he pulls over to let Aileen in his car. Again, she directs him to drive to a deserted location where they can have sex.
The evidence is consistent with Mr. Humphreys getting out of the vehicle from the driver's side. We're looking at Aileen Wuornos getting out from the passenger side. And it was at that point that shots rang out. So Mr. Humphreys is shot several times. He staggers over to this location, and that's where Mr. Humphreys collapses. But what was so important to us was the fact that he was shot 1 time at a close non-contact range, meaning that the gun was held only just a few inches away from his chest when that round was fired.
Weeks later, Sergeant Brian Jarvis starts to connect all the cases, realizing they are all similar. Then a task force involving multiple sheriff counties and police departments is created. 61-year-old Deputy Sheriff Walter Antonio is driving in Dixie County on November 19, 1990, when he encounters Aileen on the side of the road and picks her up to engage in sexual acts with her. She directs him to drive to a remote lodging road. She gets out of the car, goes to the driver's side, and rings off 4 rounds into Walter. His car is found 5 days later in Brevard County. The task force eventually calls in the witnesses to the crash that happened on July 4th. The task force asks the witnesses to recall the features of the 2 women, and a sketch artist then draws the legs of Aileen and Tyria. The sketch is made public to the people of Florida. Leads eventually flow in. One lead catches the attention of the task force. One of the women is consistently seen at a biker bar in Volusia County. Undercover detective Mike Joyner eventually finds her shooting pool at the Last Resort Bar in Volusia County.
I walked in the bar down there and I saw her, she was shooting pool, and I recognized her, and she had a bad scar on her forehead. Did my heart go to racing and beating? No. An undercover officer, worst enemy he had can be himself if he don't control his emotions. So I just ordered another beer and kept on working. But I knew I had her. And I knew I wasn't going to let it out of my sight.
Mike spends 3 days following Aileen. After buying Aileen numerous beers, Aileen invites Mike for a night out. Thinking quickly, Mike tells her he needs to wash up and take a shower first before they are able to go out. Instead, Mike goes to the task force where they start to plan her arrest. Going back to the bar, Mike shows Aileen the motel key. They then leave the bar together. Immediately, Aileen is arrested and charged with murder right outside the bar. The next day, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Tyra Moore is arrested. Immediately, the prosecution works out a deal with Tyria. Full immunity if she can get a confession from Aileen. Aileen confesses to get Tyria out.
Lee, they're coming after me. I know they are. What? I have to confess myself. Okay. Yes. Why the hell did you do this? Why did you do this? This time. Wait. I'll probably never be. Yes. I love you. I have to confess everything just to keep you from getting in trouble. I will. Okay. No. We'll do it now. Get it over with. Right this very moment? Yes. Get it over with. All right.
She refuses an attorney and claims that in each case, the men tried to rape her.
Well, I came here to confess. I wanted to be straight up with one thing right there and now. Sure. The reason I'm confessing is there's not another girl. I know. There is no girl.
Okay, so then what you're telling us is you're voluntarily coming forward to talk to us now.
Yeah, to let you know that I'm the one that did the charge. What's an attorney going to do? I know what I did. I'm confessing what I did. Just go ahead and let me straight. Most of the times I was drunk as hell. And I was a professional hooker. And these guys would take my they started to get drunk with me or whatever. I just like opened up and fired on them. I'm just trying to make my money and go. I don't know what to do. I know that I don't want my girlfriend involved because this is why I'm doing this. They've been talking to her parents, detectives and all. She did not do anything.
On January 27, 1992, she is tried and found guilty of the killing of Richard Mallory and is sentenced to death.
All right, the defendant Aileen Carol Wuornos being before the court attended by her attorney Tricia Jenkins, William Miller, and Billy Notice, her attorney of record, having been tried and found guilty of crime count 1 of first-degree premeditated murder and first-degree felony murder of Richard Mallory, a capital felony, and count 2 armed robbery of a firearm, armed robbery of Richard Mallory with the firearm, and no cause being shown why the defendant should not be adjudicated guilty, you're hereby adjudged guilty of said offenses.
She then pleads guilty to 5 of the other murders in exchange for not going to trial. Aileen Wuornos is never charged for the murder of Peter Sims, as the body was never found. After 10 years of appeals, Aileen Wuornos finally met her fate. On October 9th, 2002, she was executed by lethal injection. Her final words: "I have hate crawling through my system. I seriously hate human life, and I would kill again."